Her pack called her worthless. Then the Alpha King watched her defeat 5 wolves all alone now. For 23 years, Ilara Voss had been the Omega nobody wanted. She was born into the Redwood Pack, a place where strength meant everything and weakness meant nothing. From the time she was a small girl, the pack healers had whispered that her wolf was weak, maybe even broken. While other children her age were running through the forest in their fur by the time they were 10, Ilara never shifted at all. She grew up watching from the sidelines, always the one left behind. Her parents were not cruel people, not exactly, but they were proud, and pride does not mix well with shame. As the years passed and Ilara remained the only wolf in the pack who could not shift, her parents stopped introducing her to visitors. They stopped sitting beside her at pack dinners. Slowly, quietly, they let her disappear into the background of her own family. By the time she was 20, Ilara had become the pack's unofficial servant. She scrubbed the floors of the great hall. She carried water from the river before sunrise. She mended torn training clothes for warriors who would not look at her twice. The pack called her many things over the years, but the word that stuck the most, the word that followed her everywhere she went, was worthless. It hurt the most when it came from Doran. Doran was her fated mate. The bond had settled between them the day she turned 18, the kind of bond that was supposed to mean forever. For a few weeks, Ilara had let herself hope. Maybe being mated to a strong warrior like Doran would change how the pack saw her. Maybe he would stand beside her and tell everyone she mattered. Instead, Doran took one look at her failure to shift, one look at the whispers following her through the halls, and he rejected the bond in front of the entire pack. He said the words plainly, without shame, as if rejecting her cost him nothing at all. A few months later, he took up with Celine, the Beta's daughter, golden-haired and golden-tempered, a warrior born with everything Ilara lacked. Celine enjoyed reminding Ilara of exactly how far beneath her she stood. "Worthless," Celine would say, tossing a broken cup at Ilara's feet and demanding she clean it up. "A waste of a bloodline. I don't know why the Alpha even lets you stay." Ilara never answered. She had learned, long ago, that silence cost far less than defiance. Warriors who talked back got punished. Omegas who stayed quiet got ignored, and being ignored, Ilara had decided, was a kind of safety. But what nobody in the Redwood Pack knew, what Ilara herself had only begun to understand in the last few months, was that her wolf had never actually been missing. It had been locked away. She discovered the truth by accident, on a night when grief and anger had driven her far past the training grounds and into the deep forest, farther than she had ever gone before. Alone, beneath a full moon, something inside her chest had cracked open, just slightly, just enough for her to feel a low, powerful hum beneath her ribs. It did not feel broken, it felt caged. Night after that, she returned to that same clearing. She did not tell a single soul. She simply sat beneath the trees and pressed her hand to her chest, coaxing the caged thing inside her to grow a little stronger, to stretch a little further, to remember that it was allowed to exist. She had no idea, not yet, that her own aunt had been the one to lock it away years earlier, terrified of a prophecy about a wolf too powerful for one pack to hold. She only knew that something was waking up inside her, and for the first time in her life, she felt less alone. The day everything changed started like any other. It began with an insult and ended with blood in the snow. The senior warriors of Redwood Pack, including Doran, had traveled 2 days north for a treaty summit with a neighboring pack. Only a handful of younger guards remained behind to watch the border, along with the pack's usual staff of Omegas and workers. Ilara had been assigned to sweep the courtyard, a task Celine had personally requested for her that morning, after another public scolding over a broken teacup. "Try not to break anything else today," Celine had said, smiling sweetly for the benefit of the onlookers. "Though I suppose breaking things is the only thing you're good at." Ilara had swept in silence, as always, her jaw tight, her eyes fixed on the stone beneath her broom. She told herself, as she always did, that this would not last forever. She did not know yet just how right she was. It happened just past midday. A horn blast tore through the quiet, followed by shouting from the northern gate. Elara looked up in time to see 5 rogue wolves crash through the pack's outer fence, snarling and scarred, the kind of wolves that hunted for pleasure as much as for food. Rogues like these did not attack packs at full strength, unless they smelled weakness, and with the senior warriors gone, weakness was exactly what Redwood Pack had to offer. Panic spread through the courtyard instantly, the young guards who remained scattered, some running for weapons, others simply running. Omegas screamed and fled into the great hall, dragging children behind them. Celine, so bold and biting only moments before, was nowhere to be seen. Elara did not run. She would think back on that moment for years afterward and struggle to explain what happened inside her. It was not bravery, not exactly. It was something deeper, something that had been building in her chest for months, out in that quiet clearing under the moon. As the first rogue wolf turned its yellow eyes toward a fallen child near the well, something in Elara simply broke free. Heat rushed through her veins like fire. Her bones did not resist this time, did not lock up or stay silent the way they always had. They answered. Her body twisted and reformed in a single fluid motion, faster and larger than any shift she had ever witnessed in another wolf, and when it was finished, a massive silver-furred wolf stood where the courtyard servant girl had been only seconds before, eyes glowing a deep, molten gold. The first rogue never saw her coming. She crossed the distance between them in 2 great strides and ended him before his paws touched the ground near the child. The second rogue turned toward her, snarling, and she met him without hesitation, her claws finding him before he could even complete his lunge. The third tried to run, sensing too late what kind of creature it was truly facing, but Elara was faster, and the fight ended before it had properly begun. The 4th and 5th rogues, brothers by scent, made the mistake of attacking together, thinking 2 against 1 might even the odds. It did not. Within moments, the courtyard fell silent except for the sound of Elara's own ragged breathing, steam rising from her fur into the cold winter air. 5 bodies lay scattered across the snow. Elara stood over them, blood-streaked, chest heaving, radiating a kind of power the Redwood Pack had never once witnessed within its own walls. High above the pack's territory, a shadow passed silently across the sky. Cale Thornheart, Alpha King of all 12 packs, had been traveling through the region on a routine inspection, his personal guard of hawkshifters scouting the skies ahead of him. It was pure chance that brought him near Redwood territory that day, pure chance that his guards spotted movement near the northern border and circled back to investigate. Cale was not a man easily impressed. He had ruled for over a decade. He had ended wars between packs twice his size, had buried mates lost to violence and sickness, and had heard 1,000 tales of hidden power and destined queens that turned out, in the end, to be nothing at all. He watched the world with the tired eyes of a man who expected disappointment. But as he descended toward Redwood territory and looked down into that courtyard, he saw something that made his own wolf go utterly still inside him. A single silver wolf, larger than any he had seen outside his own bloodline, standing alone over 5 defeated rogues, its power still crackling faintly in the winter air. And then the wind shifted, carrying her scent up to where he stood, and something inside Cale, that had been silent for years, suddenly roared to life. Jasmine, and something older beneath it, something that felt like home. His wolf rose up within him and spoke a single word, clear and undeniable. Mine. By the time Cale reached the ground and walked into the courtyard, Elara had already shifted back. Wrapped hastily in a spare cloak someone had thrown to her, standing pale and shaking amid the wreckage of the fight. The rest of the pack had finally poured out of the great hall, drawn by the sudden silence, and stood frozen at the sight before them. Doran, who had returned early from the summit, just in time to witness the aftermath, stared at Elara as though seeing a stranger. Celine's mouth hung open, no clever words left to offer. Elara's own mother pressed a trembling hand to her lips, shame and disbelief warring across her face. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. Cale crossed the courtyard without sparing any of them a glance. He walked straight to Elara, and to the shock of every wolf present, he knelt before her in the bloodied snow. "You are not worthless," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the silent courtyard. "You just defeated 5 rogue wolves alone, without help, without hesitation. I have led warriors for 12 years who could not have done what you did today." Elara stared down at him, too stunned to speak. Around her, the pack that had spent 23 years teaching her to feel small now stood in utter silence, unable to look away. Kale rose to his feet, his eyes never leaving hers. "You are my mate," he said simply. "I felt it the moment the wind carried your scent to me. Redwood Pack loses an Omega today. My court gains a queen." A murmur rippled through the crowd, but no one dared to argue. Even Doran, who had rejected her so easily years before, said nothing at all. Elara looked around at the faces that had ignored her, mocked her, and made her feel invisible for so long. She looked at her mother, who could not meet her eyes even now. She looked at Celine, whose golden confidence had finally cracked. And then she looked at the king standing before her, offering her a hand and a future she had never once dared to imagine. For the first time in her life, Elara let herself be seen. She left Redwood Pack that same evening, walking out through the same gate the rogues had broken only hours before, this time at the side of the most powerful wolf in the 12 packs. She did not look back. In the months that followed, stories of that day spread far beyond Redwood territory. Packs across the land spoke of the Silver Wolf, who had faced 5 rogues alone and won, and of the Alpha King, who had knelt before her in the snow without a moment's hesitation. Nobody in Redwood Pack ever again dared to call her worthless. They spoke of her only in whispers now, with something that sounded a great deal like regret. Elara, for her part, never wasted much time thinking about the family and the pack that had failed her. She had spent 23 years being told she was nothing, and it had taken only one afternoon in the snow to prove them all wrong. She was not interested in revenge. She was only interested in finally living as the wolf she had always been, strong and whole and free, standing beside a king who had seen her truth the very first moment their paths crossed. And somewhere deep in the northern forest, in a courtyard still stained faintly with old snow, the story of the Omega who became a queen was told again and again, a reminder to every young wolf who felt small and unwanted that worth was never something other people could decide for you. It was something you carried inside yourself all along, waiting for the moment it was finally ready to answer.